One thing I always ask people when they're considering signing up for our foundational marketing service is, are you sure you're going to be in business in a year from now? And this is a super important question because if you're going to be going out of business in a month, if you can't figure out how to get some customers, then you probably shouldn't be investing your time and money in strategies that aren't going to yield instant results. And there's definitely a broad spectrum of options when it comes to marketing online. So understanding kind of the duality of, do I need results right now versus in the future? What are my options for those? What does it look like? That's what this video is all about. So that's the golden question. Are you sure you're going to be in business in a year from now? If the answer is yes, then you should definitely have a really solid core marketing system. We call it the foundational marketing system, but you should have some way that customers can become aware of you, learn about what you do, where you do it, and all of that stuff, and be able to contact you. And this, in the old days, this was like having a listing in the yellow pages. Like you just did that, and then people called because that's where everybody looked to find local businesses. These days, people don't use the yellow pages. They whip out their phone and they use Google. And so Google has replaced the yellow pages, but the principle's still the same. You got to show up, one. And two, you got to cut through the noise. There's going to be a million options on Google search when somebody searches, so you got to make sure that you stick out. But that's getting a little bit off topic for this video. The point is, that's a long-term strategy because you have to have a Google listing, you have to have a good number of reviews, preferably more than your competitors, and you have to have a professional website. And all three of those things take time to get. A Google listing, if you sign up today, you can have it live in as soon as a week from now, but it could take a couple months. It just depends on how long that process takes with Google. A website with us, if you signed up today, you would be getting your website launched at a minimum of 8 weeks from now. So that's a couple months out. If you needed customers within a month or you were going to go out of business, you wouldn't want to be investing in something that wasn't even going to be visible by anybody for 2 months, right? And to get a substantial amount of reviews, that takes time. If you ever asked customers for reviews, you know that can be kind of a painful process for you. So those things take time. But when you have those three things in place, it's going to be one of the most lucrative forms of marketing that you have because customers are just going to find you organically. They're going to vet you. They're going to read your reviews. They're going to learn all about you so that by the time you're even talking to them, they're already almost all the way to becoming your customer. So that's the long-term solution. The cool thing about it is we call it a foundation because you can add any of these other strategies that I'm about to bring up on top of that. But in my opinion, if you're in this for the long run and you don't have that foundation in place, then you're just missing out on tons of business that's going to be the easiest customers to close and the cheapest to acquire by far. So let's say that you are in a dire situation. Maybe you just started, you need to prove this concept of this business within the next month or two, or you're going to have to go get a job and this business will no longer exist. So you're not really interested in investing in the long term right now. Advertising is going to be your best bet. You can advertise on Google, you can advertise on Facebook, you can send out mailers. If I was going to go out of business in a month, if I didn't get customers, as a contractor, like a local service person, I would just be going door to door. I'd be doing all of these things that I could afford, but advertising on Google's expensive. Advertising on Facebook's expensive if you don't know what you're doing. Sending out mailers is expensive, and it doesn't yield that much results these days. I mean, we all get a stack this big of junk mail, right? So you would just be adding to that stack. But going door to door is your best bet for getting customers today. Like, it would be hard. I have a hard time imagining anybody going to 100 doors and talking to 100 people and not getting some kind of job out of it. And if you don't, then it means you need the practice of pitching yourself, of talking to people, of just asking if they need help. And you do that every day for a week or two, you're going to be really, really good at talking to people, at communicating the value that you have to offer. And that's really what this is all about. All of these are just ways that we can use to convey the value that we have to offer. So how you do it depends on your situation. Are you in it for the long run? You in it for the short run? With advertising, I could have ads going in as little as a day. You know, I could go throw on my shoes and go be knocking on doors in the next 5 minutes. So those things happen really quickly. Getting customers organically through Google, not going to happen quickly. It takes, like, if you signed up today, it'd take about 8 weeks for your website to launch. And it's possible that you'd start to see more phone calls and whatnot pretty soon after that. We've seen that before, but still, that's a couple months out. So if you're thinking short term, you've got the advertising options. You can go hoof it and knock on some doors. If you're thinking long term, start thinking about how you get your company actually established so that when people are looking, they find you naturally rather than you having to assert yourself into their face with ads.